So, good evening. I'm Reverend Barbara Williams, and it is wonderful to have you here. We are live at Chautauqua. This is our Positive Path for Spiritual Living lecture on Wednesday nights through the summer. And this is our last week, so I'm getting kind of nostalgic. For all of you that have never visited Chautauqua, I hope you will arrange that as part of your life. Thank you for visiting us and connecting. And I know that some of you will be watching this after the fact. So if you don't know about Unity of Chautauqua, you can go to our website, and it is unitychq.org. And so it's a combination of Chautauqua's website, which is chq.org, and you really ought to check that out, and Unity. If you wonder about Unity, and I'm not going to go into a lot of details tonight, but there's an amazing website. You can find a Unity church near you, and that is unity.org. So I want to get to, we only have an hour because there are other things going on. Chautauqua has a full schedule, so I want to honor that. And what I'd like to do now is introduce our speaker. This is our minister of the week. We bring in, for the 9 weeks of Chautauqua in the summer, we bring a minister in every week to share with us and our community. So this week we have the privilege of having the Reverend Dr. Martha Creek. And so a little about her, and on our website you can see lots about her. But what I'm really that's so meaningful to me when I read her resume, besides all the amazing things she does, is she really works to make churches healthy. That is her background. And she works with ministerial students as well as out in the field. So it is my honor and joy. It's been a joy this week. We've had so much fun together to turn this over to her and let her tell you about what she's going to talk about tonight.
Thank you, Barbara. You can see why we've had a big time this week, because she's absolutely the most wholehearted individual that's alive on the planet. So besides us, of course. So we're in a field of wholeheartedness, and it's an absolute privilege to be here. It's such an honor to be invited to be in Chautauqua, the Institute. This is decades of people with very open-minded, growth-minded, progressive learning ideas and innovation here. So it's an institute of its own. And as Reverend Barbara said, please go check it out. And beautiful grounds, as well as what's going on here theologically, what's going on here spiritually, emotionally, what's going on here to absolutely create a world that is a new world order, I believe, and leaders in that. So check it out and see how it would suit you. The topic of the week, which was my preference when I got invited to come up here, when I looked at the topics, resilience is one of my favorite words in the whole of all the words in the world. Resiliency is right up there with gratitude and appreciation and things that are my core values. So absolutely, I requested this week. Absolutely, it was a yes from Reverend Barbara that I could do this, as well as it being the end of the season here. And I want us to pause as we start here to think about what it means to you. So I'm going to share about what resiliency means to me and why it's so important. I can tell you, as you think about what it is for you, that it's my favorite part about humans. Resiliency. It's my favorite part about humans because we have had so much loss and grief and tragedies and things over the course of history since our earliest days of recorded history. And people have outlasted it. People get up one more time, even dog-tired, bone-tired, blood-tired, and put one foot in front of the other to do one more thing for the betterment of the world, for the betterment of people, for the betterment of their family, for the betterment of all that is. So then if quantum theory is true, every single thing we're doing is a benefit to the whole. So it's very inspiring to me. So think about what resiliency means to you. And I know for sure really sure that you wouldn't be here on this class tonight if you weren't resilient and had a big thread of resiliency running through you, because you'd be propped up watching TV somewhere or something else versus coming in here to see how I can gain another perspective, how I can even get some new insights about this, how I can learn something. So I know that regardless of how tired you may be from your life or particularly this year, or these diagnoses you've navigated, or what's going on in your families, that you've got a big thread of resiliency in your makeup, or you wouldn't be here tonight. So, and I thank you for that. I thank you for it. And I bow to you for that and to that part of you. So reflect on what you think it means, resilience. And where have you had that? Where did you don't even know where it came from, maybe. That something in you just got up again and kept going and kept going. In the South, it's referred to sometimes as grit. We have a grit about us. And it's not, with the South, don't hold the market on that. It's in all people. When you think about people around the world and what they've had to do in the way of resiliency and grit. So think about what it means to you. And then after we open up the discussion part of this, I'd love to hear from you about that, or put it in the chat, or whatever you want to do tonight. Resiliency is described as the ability to adapt. Sound easy? It's like, oh my God, if one little thing changes, it causes our skin to crawl off. So, and even those of us that claim we like to have change, I often ask it on Sunday in presentations, who here likes change? And most people will throw up their hand. Then it's like, is it really true that you like change? Because it's like, now keep your hand up if you want to be the one that has to change. And it's like, well, second thought, let her change. Y'all go ahead. I'm just fine, thanks. So it's a way different story when it's us that has to be the one to change, to adapt. And then even I say, oh, if you really do like change, while you've been here at the seminar, I moved your car and it's not where you left it. So see how you feel when you go out there and you can't find your car where you parked it, and see if you really do like change or not. So this adaptability, it's also, resiliency means to become stronger in the face of life's challenges. That we used challenges and grew through them. We used challenges and learned from them. We expanded, we became better. We didn't just survive, we thrived. Now, we may not have thrived in the beginning. We may have had some boogers to work out and some wrinkles to iron out. But over time and overall, we grow through those challenges. And it takes time and effort to do it. And tonight I'll present some tips, maybe that's going to be ever expanding us. And I heard a very inspired speaker here today, and you can find that at the Chautauqua website that Barbara spoke about, that was resiliency through African American history, and looking at what it took there. When we hear something like the Montgomery County, Alabama, what that boycott of that bus system there, and we think, oh yeah, that was resilient. I mean, they had to figure out how they're going to get to work and how they're going to get their jobs. And they had to figure out how they're going to not have a bus, and how they're going to have to pick up each other, and how they're going to have gas to do that, and how they got funds to do that. So there was a lot more to that boycott than most of us know from the history, and how these folks did it. And then going into that, we think, oh yeah, this will probably take a week or a few days, or maybe even a few weeks till they come to their senses. And it took 380 some days, or over a year of not having transportation, of having to organize transportation, of having to have carpools and where to meet and how to get picked up, and not including the threats and being run off the road and violence and other things that's in there, not including what's going on in the back of the house with husbands and wives and kids and health and aging parents, and all at the same time. All at the same time. So we draw on a strong, strong foundation of people that's come before us, people in our families, people in our lineage that had to have an uncommon stamina, an uncommon resilience. And those are just examples of people that have done this for us, that shed a light on, when we get a little pitiful and how hard I work or how hard it is on me or something, just to snap out of it, to wake up, to say, wait a minute. And the big perspective here, in the larger context of humanness and humanity and history and culture, I can't be singing no woe is me song today, because I've not seen it. And I used to play that as a child. I heard this song very early on when I was a child, and I tease about it now. So we're just a hair away from getting pitiful, pitiful, nobody knows the troubles I see. And it's like, that's alluring to go in there to start telling all of our troubles, instead of tip number one is to back up out of this, to back up out of my life, to back up out of my day, and let me get some perspective that says, over the course of my 60 years, most of it has been really easy. Almost all of it. And the parts that wasn't easy were about that much. But boy, they weren't easy at all. They hurt like a son of a gun. So whatever that hurt is, if I can back up out of that and see, even it's like I've got a diagnosis, I had breast cancer, some of you know, and it's like, as I stepped back and got perspective, it's like I've lived all these years without a diagnosis, without taking medicine. Like that much of my life was disease-free, and that much of it was diagnosis. And having that perspective shifts everything. Everything. And this much of ease and this much of intense suffering, real intense suffering. But in a gained perspective, I can't relate to it the same way. So that I can see with a perspective. And then as I step on back and say, no, wait a minute. Let me look at what others have endured. Let me look at the violence. Let me look at mutilation. Let me look at genocide. Let me look at these diseases. Let me look at loss of life and limb. Let me look at those war zones. It's like the whole of the world. It's like, wow. Then what am I going to complain about today? So maintaining a little perspective. Tip number 2. Finding a way to feel empowered, especially when the mind is bringing in all the evidence for, ain't I got it awful? Ain't this just awful? And we have a tendency for that, to awfulize, to dramatize. So it's no little thing to have that bringing in all the evidence for, ain't this awful? And to say, okay, it's unpleasant for sure. It's uncomfortable for sure. And I've got to stay empowered in relationship to this. I've got to find a way to stay empowered. So then I can ask good questions of myself instead of, feel and hear the difference of, I've lost my job. What am I going to do? Or, I've lost my job. What am I going to do? What can I do? What have I done before that worked? What do other people in situations like this do? What's another resource I can draw on? What can I learn from this? So there's questions we can ask to activate this frontal cortex that's got a lot of plans for us, that's got a lot of ideas, that's got a lot of how-tos and why-tos, if we can transcend this limbic system that's like, oh, I'm going to die here, and to get up here to say, what would be sane, sensible action here? So think about a situation you're in now that's been painful or troubling, worrisome to you. And see what would happen in that same situation. So the situation's not different. The situation's exactly the same, but you're very different. So what would it be like if in that situation that's kind of got its hooks in you, if you stepped back from it and gained a little perspective and moved, just leaned over in the direction of what would empower me about this? What can I do? What would be sane, sensible action here? See if you can get a feeling of it in your body, of what would happen to gain a little perspective and to even lean toward, what could I do about this? What would make sense here? Not what I can't do, ain't this awful, but I'm going to try that. I'm going to give that a go to see how that would be. I want to see what effect that would have. So some empowerment. Tip number 3 is coping, having feelings, resiliency, to have feelings, to admit we're going to have feelings. We're human beings, we're wired for feelings. And to see then, okay, to have some resiliency, some grit, and some faith that these feelings are big feelings, these feelings are heavy feelings, and I'm going to allow for them. I'm not going to stuff them. I'm not going to suppress them, depress them, disown them as much anymore. I'm not going to depress them, suppress them. I'm not going to disown them and deny these feelings that are part of my humanness and my human-heartedness. I'm also going to grow myself up just a hair and say, I'm not going to express all these feelings either. So I'm going to express, I'm going to have good, there's a reason it's called a good cry. It's proven, there's a little newsletter somewhere in my archives about, I studied this, and that every tear, every single tear looked at under a microscope revealed that it had pain-killing chemicals. The same chemicals our brain, sends out to survive us. And the same kind of chemicals those narcotic drugs that are so addictive send out too. So good cry, to have a good cry, I'm going to express. I'm going to do safe anger work. I may need to go work it off, stomp it out. I may need to throw rocks, break sticks, pound a pillow. So I'm going to have times of expressing, but I'm not going to let the feelings run the show. So I'm not going to spend my life expressing because I don't want the consequences of living that expressive in the feelings. So then how to have feelings and the feelings not have me. Imagine making room for feelings, giving space for them, not suppressing, depressing, disowning, denying them, not lying about them. I tease about us New Thought people walking around the world going, it's all good, it's all good. I'm like, well, tell your face, because it ain't caught up yet. So, and nobody burying their child wants to hear it's all good. Nobody, no sane person in grief or loss wants to hear it's all good. So maybe back at the ranch, here in our humanness, we've not realized that it's all good yet. It may be all good in the absolute, in eternity, in infinity, it may be all good, but back here at the ranch, we've got feelings, loss, grief, big feelings. So how to have the feelings and the feelings not have you. So actually then coping with feelings, allowing them, letting them be. And then number 4 is how to let problems, what presents as problems, be useful to us. So one of my, I think I said this Sunday in that presentation, that a coach told me this once when I said, she said, like, take on something to challenge you. I'm like, no, I don't want a challenge. I don't want to be challenged. And she's like, that's nonsense. Of course you want to be challenged. I'm like, no, take it from me. I do not want a challenge. And her example was, if you were on a soccer field playing soccer and somebody gives you the soccer ball and your team, and they just say, now run down there and kick the ball in the net. You don't have any opponents. You don't have anybody defending the net or whatever. How many times would you want to do that? It wouldn't be so not fun at all. It would be so boring after just a time or two. So it's like then to use these problems for resilience building, to expand this, to say this, it's a problem. Like, this has got me tripped up some. Like, I don't know yet what I'm going to do. I can't see my way out of this. I don't even see like the possibilities in it yet. I'm like, I've really got it. It's really got a hold of me. However, I'm going to stay open enough to see what is a way that I can use this problem to learn something, to gain some knowledge, to learn from somebody else, to say, how did you do this? Or how did you get around this? So not to be so undone about problems and undone about having problems, but to accept that it's this whole system that we exist in the physical, 100% of the system is set up on trial and error. Trial and error. Like, I don't know what will work. So I'm here to test it to see. And this can get very practical. Like, I used to carry around this bag on my shoulder like a body part. And most of you know I've been traipsing around from somewhere every week through airports, hotels, whatever. And then my shoulder started to hurt. And I'm like, I was just mad at the shoulder. And then somebody said, well, it's that bag you're carrying that weighs 50 pounds on your shoulder. And it's like, well, my shoulder's got to adapt. I don't know what to do because I've got to have my computer. Like, what are you saying? You know, it's like, wait a minute, I've got to get smarter than that. I've got to take that problem and say, I'm not going to leave my computer behind, but I've got to like divide it up, or I got to put in a roller bag, or I can go to a smaller computer. So there's things I could do without having to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So then I don't know what my shoulder can bear until life reports to me it can't bear that. And then I can be mad as a wet hen and go to my grave mad about that, or say, I can take this problem and innovate to see what else would be a solution here. It's just one example. And it could be anything from something that we're eating that's not suitable for us anymore. And it's like demanding that the body catch up to that versus all I've got to do is adapt a little bit, just adapt a little bit. I don't have to quit everything, just minimize something or maybe reduce here and there. So it's then how to use our solving skills, this big part of our brain, to actually solve something if we can stay up out of this small reptilian part of our brain that's so eager to make everything a problem and to make everything awful. To say, I've got some problem solving brain power. I've got some ways of looking at this differently. I've got some ways to innovate, to collaborate, to resource. Can look at what other people carry theirs in. What's the new upgrade? Oh, it went from 17 pounds. My computer went from 17 pounds to something like 5 with the next versions. So it's like, who knew? Then if we don't break out of that thinking like, well, I can't get a new computer till mine absolutely goes completely down. It's like, no, I can get a new computer because I don't want to carry 17 pounds of weight around on my shoulder 90% of the day. So if our minds opens, we can use these problem-solving skills to think broader than we've been able to do in the past. Number 5 is to stay in this is resiliency building now. Grit, meaningful connections, just like we have here. What Reverend Barbara has set up through this Unity of Chautauqua for these beautiful people that are here on the grounds that's come together with us every morning to meditate. And then those of you that's come in through the programs of following the teachings that come through me, these meaningful connections, this becomes a community, a sisterhood, a brotherhood, a soul gathering. And then these meaningful connections are people then that support us, that we draw from, that we think about, that we know is thinking about us, that we send a little card to or send a little text to or any kind of communication or something to say, I'm with you, I feel you. Somebody today just said, they told me they've kept a voice memo, like a voice recording on that I left them years ago. They still have it. And they still play it over and over. And she's found innovative ways to keep that as she gets new phones and stuff. She's found some way to keep that message. So we never know what power we hold within us, that our resilience and the resilience we have for meaningful connection and meaningful heartstrings that we keep between each other, just what that's going to do for others in developing their resiliency so that they know they don't have to do it alone. You, whatever you experience, whatever you're going through, whatever you go through, you don't have to do it alone. Ain't that good news? You don't have to do it alone. My second favorite part is you can't do it wrong. Remember, we're just testing. We're trying to see what'll work. And this one won't be so popular probably. You don't have to do it alone. You can't do it wrong, and it'll take longer than you like. So it's on a divine timing, and today I saw over there in the house where we're staying, I'd given Reverend Barbara for the Unity of Chautauqua these bookmarks that many of you have that says, God's timing, not mine. So that's been very helpful in my resiliency building. God's timing. And if you don't believe in God and that's not your word, then use whatever it is, your source's timing, creator's timing, life's timing, universe's timing, whatever would work for you in that way. So think then regarding this meaningful connection and leaning toward resiliency building as a solid ground for my existence, as a solid ground for how I want to live out whatever days and weeks, months, years, whatever I have left. I want to be more resilient. I want to value resiliency. I want to build resiliency. And we've got some tips tonight on how to do this. And specifically then, how we're going to maintain and broaden our perspective. How I'm going to do that in any situation, that I'm going to step back out of this. Step 1 is going to be to take a pause and step out of this and to say, I've got to gain some perspective here. And then I'm going to do something that'll get me feeling more empowered. And it may just be, one of my friends, Edwin, says, I don't have the foggiest notion how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to lean toward what can I do here to get a little empowerment going. And then to allow for the feelings, process the feelings, cope with the feelings, and not let the feelings run the show. To see that this is a problem, but I'm going to make the most of it. And that little metaphor about those kids at Christmas, most of you have heard it, where they went in there and it was just a big pile of pony poop in the room. And one kid was like, yay! And the other kid was like, oh no, my God, this is a gross joke. He said, why are you so happy? And the little kid said, if there's this much pony poop, there's bound to be a pony in here somewhere. So how to look at something and say, I can't see it right now, but I'm going to keep looking because I believe I can do this. I believe other people have done this, and if they could do it, I can do it. And then meaningful connections then how am I going to draw forth from somebody else, a friend, a colleague, a confidant, a mentor, a coach, a minister, my pastor, somebody that's going to say, I want you to walk through this with me. I want you to make sure that I don't feel as alone in this, and I'm not the only one that's ever done this. So meaningful connections. So valuing our friendships. And number 6 is giving and receiving. And most of us here tonight have a helper thread, a big one. Like we got there's strands of the DNA. I said, we didn't just get a strand of helping, we got the whole strand is helping. That's why we're in the professions we are. That's why we serve the way we do. And it's not as easy for some of us then to accept, to receive help and to receive support and all of that. So think about then in building resiliency that it is a giving and receiving of that. And that as I'm able to do it and receive help and support from other people, then it's a gift to us, it's a gift to the others for them to be able to do that for me as well. And that it's a both and, not one or the other. The next tip is to utilize humor and to find some way to find a little lightheartedness about the matter, whatever it is. And it's a real stretch when we're triggered. It's a real stretch when we're regressed. And in that regressive limbic system, that part of the mind that's so frozen over, so panicked, so terrorized, to have any little sense of humor. So anything that could help you to do that, to watch a little something funny, to go back. People, when I asked them how they've coped with this year of isolation and shut down and cut off and things like that, many of them said, and sometimes with a great deal of shame and guilt, that I binged watched these comedy things. And it's like, that was medicine, folks. That was medicine. That is medicine. So some humor, shamelessly, guiltlessly, something that's going to cause us to stay a little more playful, a little more in touch with humor, because from the science perspective, now remember that part of us that can laugh a little or to have a little humor is the mid part of the brain. So just to get up out of this lower part, this lower animalistic part, into this mammalian part is light years ahead. So until we can access this more cognitive problem solving part, just to get up there to that mid part. Now, this is why I say people had rather spend time with their pets than they had people, because the pets are more enlightened than most people. They don't hold grudges. They don't bite when a bark will do. They don't eat their young, things like that. So there's a reason why we like to be with our pets, because they're not as regressed as most people are because of the state of panic and this loss of humor. So one of my coaches also told me once, which was a bitter pill for me, because I'm a very serious type. I have to work at staying a little more light, a little more playful, because I take things very seriously, and I excuse it away by saying I'm the oldest child born to 2 youngest. And I looked around when I was 3, many of you have heard me say it, and went, oh no, I'm the oldest one here. So I've had a serious threat. I have a serious tattoo on my limbic system. So I have to really look at that and work with that to stay a little more playful. And the truth about seriousness is that it's a symptom of anxiety. So the more anxious I get, the more serious I get. So it's no little thing to keep some humor in there and to consciously, intentionally, and purposely put some humor in there so that I don't let that anxiety grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. The next tip is for self-care, caring for yourself, spiritual self-care, compassion for yourself, understanding for yourself, whatever is your other self-care, to take a walk, to take a bath, whatever it is, to say the more cared for I am, the more resilience I have. So when I'm not feeling strong and resilient, a basic and essential step is to get right in there and to say, what can I do for myself that would be caring for my spirit, that would be caring for my heart. One of the women last night on the call with me said, Martha, you've just nailed it. You've nailed it. I've stopped caring for my heart. I've stopped caring for my own heart, which is the source of a great deal of pain. And then it's a source then of not feeling like I'm on solid ground, even feeling scattered, that I can't think clearly. So this self-care is not just a theory, but an absolute spiritual practice to bring all the care and love and understanding to my own spirit, the soul of me. And to the degree that I do that, I'm naturally going to be fuller, more resilient, more able-bodied, certainly then more resourceful, seeing options, more empowered. So just because it was last on the list doesn't make it less important. So Godspeed to you as you build your resilience, as you build your grit, whatever that means to you. Somebody used to wear a t-shirt around, I think the Cracker Barrel sold it, that said grits means girls raised in the South. So just know that I know for sure that the South doesn't have the market on that. And I know that you've also got the tendency, the propensity, and the capacity for an increasing, always ever increasing, expanding ability for resiliency. And I'm encouraging us to build some muscle for it. I believe it's critical right now with what's going on in our evolution, the world, our families, and that we are the ones. We're the ones that were appointed here for this time and in this way. So if somebody else could do it, they'd be here doing it. So it's us. So the more of this resiliency we can build and more solid ground we can stay on, then the more powerful, the more creative, the more causative we're going to be. So I stay inspired by that on most days. And I'm inspired by you and watching you, the ones of you that I know, and by ministries like this that we're serving here, by institutes like this that we're serving here, to know that together we can do what I cannot do alone. And together we can do what you cannot do alone. So I lift you up in whatever ways that you're doing this already. Godspeed. I blow a breath of inspiration out for you right through my own big heart to yours, to tell you carry on and to know you're not alone in it. You cannot do it wrong. And it's going to take longer than we like, I think. So I'll open it up then for questions. You want to start here, Barbara? Thank you again for being here tonight.
And yes, I want to say thank you. We are going to stop recording just a minute, but I would like to encourage you to go to our Facebook page, Unity of Chautauqua, or our website. You can get there and you can see our YouTube channel as well. And if you pass this tonight, this recording, it'll be a couple days before it'll be posted. But I just appreciate this message. Feels like it's so vital to what's going on, as Martha said, in the world. So let's pass it on with a gift I pass them on all the time, and I get thanked a lot. So anyhow, we're going to stop recording, and thank you for being here.